Hi, and welcome back to Plan 9 Crunch. I am Joe Gibson. We have talked about sinners on this channel before, but you can find the link to that in the end card. Today, I want to focus on an ambiguous cult film curiosity that frankly did not get a lot of time for thorough explanation in the movie because it was just in a brief post-credit scene, so spoilers ahead for the very end of Sinners. Stack and Mary are somehow vampires with boundaries and some level of emotional maturity to be able to let Sammy live with his life without turning him. More than that, they also have the strength not to force Sammy to use his griot gift to show them their departed Smoke and Annie for the space of his entire career. That's more than Remick was capable of as the oldest and presumably wisest head vampire. Earlier in the movie, Stack could not stop himself from trying to bite Smoke. Mary and Remick both could not control their saliva, one of the most basic bodily functions, yet we are supposed to believe that two vampires can restrain themselves for decades with just wardrobe changes and their angst. Clearly, there is something that they have at the end of the movie that they didn't have for most of the movie as vampires. Remick's vampire curse seems to function as a hive mind, but what does that mean exactly? Though Annie says outright that the vampires keep their souls, just unable to move on to the afterlife, the film seems to indicate otherwise. The soul is a touchy subject across cultures and decades, but I think we can all agree that if we can isolate anything to being the soul, it would be human care for each other, those kinds of positive human emotions, especially parent to child. Basically, Bo Chow being willing to kill and turn his daughter at Remick's order makes me think that either his soul is not there or it is not in control. Also, the KKK couple literally reversed their core beliefs after Remick starts using them. The rules of the vampire hive mind seems to be that Remick can forcibly convert his thralls, but take and use their unique abilities, attributes, memories, and gifts. Remick reads Bo's memories, and though Stack says he can also read Remick's, this is offered in response to Smoke questioning Remick's claims. That is to say, your hive mind underling saying he can read your mind and you're telling the truth does not communicate he has any power over you. In fact, it means the opposite, that he's a good boy, backing you up and following your lead. At a few moments in the film, Stack and Mary seem to work differently than the other thralls of Remick, though. It would seem that they have their own plan that Remick doesn't know or doesn't care about, where they turn Smoke and Annie and all four go off together because when Smoke stakes Annie after they bite her, only those two react differently than the Horde. In their grief, they flee. However, then we see that Remick is also fleeing at the same time in the same shot next to them in order to regroup and get a tactical advantage. So unless we say that they briefly took control of the hive mind in this grief, which there's no evidence for, this was a misdirect, and he still is controlling them. It's just manipulation of Smoke. If I had to say something that actually separates Stack and Mary from the other vampires' human capabilities, other than being main characters that we see a lot of, it would be that they are rather compliant after their turning. Now, yes, okay, they both have to be murdered, and though we never see Stack resist getting bit, Mary pretty clearly tries to avoid getting murdered by Remick. But before that point, Stack was nodding along to the music, enjoying it. What does it mean to become Remick's vampire thrall? To not be yourself, but somehow you are in there. To a large extent, who we are is our memories. The rest would have to be the soul, but again, the soul also stays in the body in the scenario. To maintain the fiber of one's being and one's memories, but not maintain the racism they were steeped in for the KKK couple, means there is something else in them than themselves. And they do gain something else. Remick's catalog of Irish folk songs, and I guess whatever instruments he brought along with him, seriously, where did they get those from? Remick also gains their abilities and knowledge, which would include all the memories and word associations of the clan members, if it also included suddenly being fluent in Chinese. If Remick is in control of that aspect of all of his thralls, but he makes them less racist, that would mean that he is suppressing some aspects of them. Now, Stack was enjoying the music. Stack changes into a vampire but has fun in the undeath more than the other characters. Remick would not have to suppress as much in Stack as he would the others, and once Remick dies, well, Mary would be the head vampire since she turned Stack, and those are the only two around, and he would be the most compliant with her, or she would suppress him the least, since she genuinely wanted a life with him before and after Remick's influence. That's what they get. Again, I'm not sold on this. It's the only explanation I can really think of that allows Stack and Mary to be unique among the vampires. These cult film curiosities are something that we are not the end-all be-all on. I am just sharing my thoughts on something puzzling or interesting. And now I'll ask all of you to take to the comments and share your thoughts Thank you all for watching. You can follow us on Planet 9 Crunch, Facebook, TikTok, or our traditional blog, planet9crunch.com. That's a wrap.